You ready? All right, we are ready. So I'll call the meeting to order. Thanks for all of you for being here. Again, thanks to the Board of Education for allowing us to use their space. Before we get into move forward into the public comment, I do want to welcome a couple of new folks. And I want to say first, before I welcome them, Dave Harshbarger had sent Bill and I a note, and actually I apologize, I didn't respond to him personally, but I will. With his recent appointment to the MUB board, he had asked that he's going to come off, and Dave was very loyal to the MPO and a good MPO board member. But with that, we have Counselor Joe. And Joe, will you say your name? I apologize.
Oh, no, it's all right. Abu Ghanem.
Abu Ghanem. And welcome. I know you'll be a good addition, and we're happy to have you. And as I mentioned when in Counselor Harshbarger's note, he had also told us that Joe would be his replacement, and that we're looking forward to you being with us here. And secondly, who I tried to run over in the parking lot as I came in.
More than once.
From a past life.
That's a sign.
But to welcome Bob Lucci. Bob's the mayor of Westover, and so happy to have Bob as part of the MPO and appreciate it. So with that, public comment section, and unless
Christian's the Citizens Advisory Committee.
yeah, I know that. So I was going to say, unless Ben has something to say.
Yeah, okay.
So hearing none, move on to the approval of the minutes. What's your pleasure on the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? If not, those minutes will stand as printed. Committee reports. Christian is here from the Citizens Advisory Committee.
Do I need to go to the mic here? Probably.
Yeah.
Please.
All right, thanks for having me. Schedules have allowed me now to come to Thursday evenings. Family schedule is very busy, but happy to be here. So we did have a quorum present for the Citizens Advisory Committee at our last meeting just recently. So looking through your agenda, items 5 and 6, there's unanimous support for all the things that y'all are voting on tonight. So items 5 and 6, we applaud the work on Greenback Road, adding for the TIP amendment, looking that $4.2 million award to look at a trail on Greenback Road or multi-use trail, adding that to the ongoing work on Greenback. There's good discussion and support for item 8, the carbon reduction and surface transportation block grant funding the process. And I think it's a really great opportunity. We talked about this, that for municipalities, if you look at the requirements and the regulations, that non-motorized infrastructure, trails, sidewalks, bike infrastructure, you can make improvements using some of that money on local roads. It doesn't have to be the federal aid eligible. So I think it's a really good opportunity to work on those things on local roads as well. Item 9 on your agenda, the projects to include in the Unified Planning Work Program, the UPWP, had a really good discussion about not just looking at injuries and mortalities like the safety performance measures, but really pushing to better understand crash rates and crash data. Starting to encouraging Jing to work on those things and really setting performance measures locally to reduce crashes. I know there have been a couple recently on High Street, and it continues to be an ongoing thing as we improve vehicle, systems and other things to prevent injuries and deaths. I think it's also important to work on crashes. So we had a good discussion on that. A couple of other things that came up. We want to thank Ed Sneckenberger for his long service. He is going to be moving out of the area for personal reasons. So he had a long, I think 20 years ago I first met him here. So great to have his service. We appreciate all he did. And congratulations to Mr. Austin for being named to the board of the directors of the National Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations. Those things came up. That's all we have to report. We had a quorum present, which is awesome. It's been a while, so happy to be here. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, actually, if you don't mind, for the benefit of this group, but in particular for some of our new people, Can you explain a little bit about your involvement with the MPO and your organization, the way you go about, who's on it, and what do you do, and so on, et cetera?
Yeah, I know we have representatives from the city's bicycle and pedestrian boards. I'm a former chair of the pedestrian safety board, now kind of at large. And Ed was over in the Suncrest area, so we have representation from around the city and outside of the city as well. I'm forgetting the exact specifics that are in the bylaws. You got me.
Sorry.
Mr. Kowecki, sorry about that.
Should have given you a heads up.
No, that's okay. No, but many moons ago, I think back in 2008, 9, 10, I served as chair of the Morgantown, the city's pedestrian safety board. So, yeah, and I work at the School of Public Health at WVU. That's my daytime gig.
And I think the thrust of the committee that Christian's chairing is that it really is a citizens group. So you don't have to have a special level of expertise to be part of that. It's just wanting to be involved, and so.
And we're challenged with, all of us, with picking somebody to serve on the technical advisory committee and the citizens advisory committee. So there'd be two as choices for Board of Education, two from Westover and Granville.
Yep.
So anybody that's interested, I would encourage them to step forward.
Yeah, we appreciate everyone that's on there. We have voice of represented people with disabilities. We have Mountain Line Transit. So we have a good group when we can get everybody there, and we have a pretty spirited discussion. So it's pretty good.
And Mr. Sneckenberger's leaving the area does open up a spot, and he was actually appointed, I believe, as a City of Morgantown representative coming from the Suncrest Neighborhood
He's
Association.
going on to us.
Yeah.
So that will be a loss. He's been on the committee since before I got here, and has been very loyal.
I was going to say, I think these groups are the closest thing for the average citizen to get to government, because they're not layered down so far. I mean, you can talk about so many different things in government, but this is almost a direct line from there to here. We take it to the state, to the federal level. So I always like to encourage citizens to get involved in that, because that's one place where your voice does get heard.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And I'm also on the board of the Mon River Trails Conservancy, and so wanted to update you. Probably see earth moving for the Collins Ferry connector at long last. We had to knock some cinder blocks down and other things and work with the property owner, but I think it's happening finally. And that's been in the works for almost a decade. So yeah, pretty excited about that. So thank you, Mr.
Well,
Kowecki.
good.
Sorry.
Thank you, Christian, and let us know if we can help in any way as far as in the recruitment, but we'll encourage anyone that, would have an interest to certainly contact you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Contact us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other
Anyone else?
questions? Anything else I can help with?
Just for the public, when's your meeting times and where do you meet?
Yeah, our meeting time is 6 o'clock on the Thursday before a policy board meeting. So it's, policy board meetings are third Thursdays. They meet on the second Thursday. And what we literally do is take their recommendation after the meeting, adjust the policy board information accordingly to reflect their recommendation, and send it to the policy board.
Yeah, and we have the schedule. We went over the meeting schedule for next year. It's typically every other month with, not exactly, but close.
A few variations. Like the policy board, there's 7 committee meetings every year that we ask the Citizens Advisory Committee members to work with. The Technical Advisory Committee is usually made up of staff. For example, the Town of Granville's town manager, City of Morgantown's engineers, the county planning director serve on that committee, and that meets on the Tuesday during business hours because they're staff persons.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, Finance Committee report, Mayor Lewis.
Right, thank you. We have a 3-month report this time. So beginning in August, we had a balance of $67,037.84. 3 deposits that month totaling $26,283.67. 21 disbursements totaling $26,123.34, which left us an ending balance of $67,198.17 going into September. We had one deposit in September, $19,002.65, 19 disbursements that month, totaling $29,265.68, leaving us an ending balance in September of $56,935.14. Going over into October, then, we had two deposits of $26,263.67, 15 disbursements totaling $18,594.56, leaving us a balance at the end of October of $64,604.25.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to, second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Blinko. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then that report will then stand as presented. Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since we did not meet in October, I have a fairly lengthy executive director's report. I'll try and be brief, and maybe some of the items the policy board might want to discuss under the other business section. First item, I'd like to let you know, as you all know, we lost Ms. Moberly, who's no longer working with us. She moved to be closer to her family. She found another job. We have been recruiting a replacement. Our first attempt at recruiting, we did not receive good candidates. We reissued the advertisement, and we did actually receive several good qualified candidates. I've been working with the county planning director to evaluate those candidates, and we've come to a priority candidate who I will actually speak to tomorrow that we will probably offer the job to. So that position should be filled. It's a very highly qualified individual, and I'm very excited about the possibility. And we did have several good quality candidates, which was very encouraging. The next item is the RAISE grant, which we are amending the TIP tonight to include for the funding. One of the big questions that's been around the RAISE grant, which is to design improvements to Greenbag Road and to do a feasibility study on a parallel path to Greenbag Road that would connect the elementary school to the Deckers Creek Rail Trail. There are two ways the MPO can go with this, and I've spent quite a bit of time exploring those two ways. One way, we could be the direct recipient of those federal funds, which would give us control of the study and the design study. And there are some good points to that we would be able to have more control of it. Or we could essentially contract with the state to get the state to perform that study. They would hire the consultant would work for them, and they would use their already established processes. I've had a lot of discussions with the Federal Highway Administration, a lot of discussions with the Division of Highways about the recommendation on this, and my recommendation is to contract with the state for that. And my reason for that recommendation is what we are looking for is basically a NEPA study, a National Environmental Protection Act study, that will have the project be as close to shovel-ready as you can be in a quick period of time. And the reason that to me is a high priority is what we would like to do, since the study is funded by a RAISE grant, we would like to go for another RAISE grant to actually build the project. And so having the study completed in a quick time frame is of key importance to getting that done. The RAISE grants are only guaranteed to be around for another 4 years. And this study is at a minimum going to take 2 years and may take longer. In discussions with the state, we can put in some deadlines for getting the study completed so we can meet that. And we can also work out arrangements to ensure that there's plenty of local input into the design that's developed. And so that is our recommendation. And if the policy board wants to discuss that further, I would recommend that we do it under other business. But I did want to bring that out and let the policy board know about that. The other item I wanted to report on is the carbon reduction and STBG funding, and we put a proposed process in there, which is maybe a little premature, But what we are doing is working with the state through the West Virginia Association of MPOs to implement portions of the recently passed bill grant. And that bill grant specifies that departments of transportation are to have a consultative process with MPOs for the allocation of these funds to our area. According to what we've heard and had in the discussions, it is not just satisfactorily for the state to say, well, we spent that much money in your area. MPOs are to have a input into how the projects are selected, and also to ensure that the funds are equitably distributed throughout the state. And it's a very involved process. What we're doing with, number 8 is not an item for vote, it's an item for discussion of the process, is we're informing the state that we're ready to have an informed discussion and to make recommendations and to try and program those funds in conjunction with the state. And it will have to be a consultative process. The vast majority of the work we would probably want to get done are on state-maintained roads. So the MPO and the state have to work together. We're going through the process of developing that, but we also want to demonstrate to the state and to the feds that we're ready to have a deliberative process to do that, an open, transparent process.
So with that, and maybe we're covering item 8
A little bit, yeah.
in that, and then we can go ahead and just
Yeah.
mark that one off. But, so what that really means, and you gave a good description, but for example, I think maybe the city and even the county said, hey, can we use these funds to do this? We're there, right? But we have to go through that process. So the good news is that is going to be, after we go through the process, that is going to be allowed.
Yeah.
And by moving now more quickly, and I know
Yeah.
you and I have talked, and you've talked to the state, that the hope would be that the process could last as long as March, but
Yeah.
by us being ready, we can maybe get it done by January or
Yeah.
February
Well-
earlier, so.
Well, and what we could do is make a recommendation for those funds, even though we don't have a formally established process. And the state could go ahead and program them. But the important part really is to have a transparent process for how it works.
So when
And-
will we be making, I mean, I know.
That's exactly my
when-
question.
When will we be making that recommendation? Because I think we're prepared to make it now.
Well, we could go ahead and submit the letter.
Okay.
A letter making recommendations on some of those funds.
Okay.
But we don't have a formally set budget for those funds.
Understood, but
And so, it would just, at this point, be a recommendation. It wouldn't be the formal process that I think everybody's looking for.
so to get that letter going, we would need an action item
Yeah.
to do that. So I would entertain a
We-
motion.
I was gonna say,
To-
just
Do we need to
by
put that on the
affirmation.
next agenda, or can we do it?
I think we can do it
so, not
tonight
a
for,
letter.
Well, and it's a letter of recommendation.
Oh,
but
okay.
It's not a letter.
All right, we can just do it by affirmation, really.
is there
Like we've done before, and we want him
Yeah.
to send,
is there a motion to do that?
I so move,
well, I don't know that,
make the recommendation.
Well,
I don't know if you need a.
Well, we need a motion, and then the chair would entertain the motion be accepted by acclamation if policy members are in favor of that.
I'm just concerned that we're voting on something that's not on the agenda, whereas we just do the affirmation.
yeah.
And that's what that was my question, yeah.
Okay, so let's
So
do
we can
this.
just do it by, is it okay if we?
Unless we have anyone that
Objects.
Right.
objects,
Okay.
we can ask Bill to go ahead and start the process. How's that?
Right, because he's just doing a letter,
Yeah.
and we've done that many times before, where we just ask him to send the letter, and then
Okay.
whatever we have to vote on comes back, so.
Does anyone have an objection? If not, then
Okay.
that's a direction then.
Okay, for clarification though, the specific recommendations we're gonna make, are we gonna talk about that? Because I know there's some people new on the committee that may not know what is going on.
So what are we know the one.
With the
The
we have
119 and
119,
73.
and we have a second one too, right?
Yes.
Possibly,
Yeah,
yeah.
the two projects that
Okay.
we've been discussing with the policy board members, the chairman, Commissioner Bloom, and others, have been, one, the redesign of the Smithtown Road intersection, which has been I think, problematic for the whole policy board. And we are waiting for some clarification about the construction funding
Okay.
on that from DOH. And so the letter that we're talking about is if we get the confirmation that DOH has the construction funding available for the redevelopment of that, then we would write a letter saying, please use our carbon reduction funding for the design of that project. And that is,
Yeah, if I could just say, that is coming down Ramada in.
Right.
Where 73 comes in, the 11970, that's the thing that we have been working on for 20-plus years to try and get the funds. The state said they have the funds now, but we needed to do the engineering study.
Yeah.
And we were gonna use basically this funding to do the engineering study so we can use the state funds to get it finally much better than this. And the accident rate, the lights, and it meets, and it does clearly meet the carbon reduction. And it was recommended from when we had our meeting with the state officials that they felt that this could be a good project for it.
yes.
And then would we do those, is there a second project then?
There's a second project that has been under discussion, and it is a Tier 1 project in the MPO's plan. And we have also discussed it, and that would be the Willie Street project, and it would be part of the ongoing downtown study, which we have in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan as our number one priority. And I actually mentioned that also in conjunction with Unified Planning Work Program. That study is to take a look at all the traffic signals downtown. It is to take a look at the complete operation, take a look at what happens if you close Grunbein Island, what happens if you reroute Willie Street, what happens if we reconfigure some of the portion at the waterfront. It is a complete signalization study. It is a Tier 1 project, and it would tie into the MAP project for Richwood and all of those. It would give us a complete idea of how traffic operates in
So
downtown.
you would need two separate letters then?
We
right?
would
They
need two separate letters, and that probably would be a different funding source.
So is anyone have any objection? Bill would write two, just
I
for
I would write two
clarification.
letters saying that, and the carbon reduction funding is, we anticipate there would not be enough of that to fund that study. We would be looking at our surface transportation block grant funds. That would, under that, I need to go back and look at it. That may require a match.
Okay. Well, but it won't for the recommendation.
You would not for the recommendation, but that, to actually do it, we would use it. It would require a match to get somebody under contract.
Okay.
What are we looking at in terms of funds? What are we,
The project.
what's the expectation?
The project is budgeted in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan at $500,000.
For each, or for both?
No, for the.
The second one.
The.
For Willie?
Yeah.
For Willie, well, for the downtown study, which includes Willie Street.
And then the one that,
About
The other one's about
$250,000.
$250,000
okay.
How much money do we
for the
have,
design study.
just for, so we can publicly, so everyone understands, how much money do we have from the carbon reduction, and are there any other funds, just so we know what we're talking about?
These are, and Brian may want to, and I don't have the exact numbers because we're still
Generally.
working on the process.
He's over there getting squirmy now.
The carbon reduction funds are on the order, I believe it's about $350,000.
Okay.
And the surface transportation block grant funds are in the range of $3 million.
Okay.
Yeah, that is correct. I mean, you're looking around $350,000, for the carbon reduction funds. And that should be annually.
Right.
And again, we're really jumping on a lot of different topics
Yeah.
right here.
That's normal for us.
The sub-allocated STBG funds, that's kind of one of those areas I think Bill kind of touched on about establishing the STIP operating procedures and project initiation and those types of things. And internally with the DOH, we have not finalized how we're actually going to, disperse all that. There's been a lot of talk about utilizing the same funding formulas that we've used for PL funds, which is what basically the MPOs have currently been running their budgets on. There's every MPO in our state, we start off with a base allocation, and then based on the population, we break it into percentages, so the more population, the greater the percentage of funds you got. There's been discussions about trying to include lane miles within those MPOs. We actually had a presentation over this past summer that kind of laid out a couple of those scenarios to all the MPOs, and depending upon which MPO you are, you like some more than you like others because you get more money. So none of that's been determined. That's part of the STIP operating procedures that we're still internally trying to work our way through. But at the end of the day, that again is going to be plus or minus $3 million, for this area. I say you put the two together, you get $3.3 million or so. In the grand scheme of things, that doesn't go very far every year.
Hey, Brian, you mentioned that on the 350, on the carbon funding source, something about annually. Is there a commitment to go beyond 1 year on that funding?
It's a 5-year bill, so
Five-year
it should
bill,
be,
so-
annually.
So, if you look at totality of it, you're looking at roughly 1.6, 1.7 over the 5-year period.
Yeah.
The
If-
carbon
if
reduction.
If Bill and I are reading the bill correctly,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, and so there's still a lot of negotiation going on, but they've actually already, the feds have the 22 money. And so it's not really too early to start thinking about what are we going to do.
For the 23
Yeah.
funding.
Now, here's where the question comes up, and I want to really get a clarification. The carbon reduction, not the other, but the carbon reduction is funds that we as an MPO can make decisions on, because my concern is, at times we've made some recommendations, but then the state has come in and negated what we have been interested. So I want to get from my understanding, the carbon reduction, I'm not talking about the other one yet.
Once we go through the process.
Yeah, when we go through the
Carbon
process.
reduction and the STBG are essentially going to be
Treated the
almost
same.
Oh, okay. So if we go through the process, and this group here with the recommendations, also the citizens group that helps, and we go through the process, we will be making decisions, and that's what I think has really changed.
That's what we're really,
That's what we're
Well,
doing.
that's really what we're-
And again, there's the rub with a lot of this, because.
that's what we're still
again,
negotiating about.
Yeah, when you start going through all the procedures and the policies and everything else, just like anything else, the money can only be used on certain roadways. It can only be used on certain things.
Right.
Some require matches, some don't. So in the grand scheme of things, I'm just gonna make something up.
Yeah.
You wanna go out there and you wanna pave a certain road. Okay, we might be, yeah, that's already on here, that's great. Okay, we'll match it, sure. But you guys might be thinking of building a road from point A to point B that's like, hey, this is nowhere on the state's radar. It's not a priority with us. You guys need to come up with that match. Oh, this is gonna be a $6 million project? Okay, well, then you guys gotta come up with 20% of that. Who's coming up with that? County, cities?
Right.
That's a whole different ballgame when it starts coming down to,
Okay.
a county or somebody's gotta come up with $500,000 to match it.
Yeah.
But
So
we
there's-
can make
there's a lot of that, we gotta play well with each other, to make some of these things happen. I mean, that's the whole idea of
And
setting up the STIP operating
Specifically to the
procedures.
project you're worried about, or not worried about,
No.
we're all worried about.
Yeah.
The answer to that is yes.
Yeah, for that one. And I think we're all in agreement on that. And I think, so is the state. I think
Yeah.
that one's the easy one. There are two other questions that, and I know it's kind of out of the order, but then it could answer, so we don't do
Right.
it. Okay, I understand Westover is in a unique situation timeline with them trying to work on Holland Avenue. Are there funds, and I believe as I read through the carbon reduction, it probably doesn't meet, no, I mean, I think we could probably swing it, but then the state might say, no, it doesn't
Yeah,
meet
say
it.
right.
Yes, they would probably, what about the other $3 million? Is there any funds that, and that's what I asked Bob specifically to be here because, he's asking us and the 3 county commissioners were wondering, are there any funds, and not something that could help offset so we can match the state? Is there anything along those kind of lines?
We actually, and I talked to the mayor about it and have been exploring that with the actual problem that the city of Westover's dealing with.
Right.
The two funding sources that we're discussing are, it would be a stretch to make them applicable. But we've also, and I shared an email with Bob, with Brian about that. We're also exploring, there have been changes to some other programs that Westover's project may become eligible for.
Okay,
And I've actually asked for clarification
That's fine.
on that from the Federal Highway Administration.
okay. Because we had left that open-ended with the county commission.
Yeah.
That we were going to come back to the MMPO, and we wanted to at least state that, we were going to come back and bring that up in that issue.
And I will say the Federal Highway Administration was interested, and they may be exploring other funding sources I don't know about, because they asked me some questions when I emailed them about it.
Oh, good. Okay,
And so they are actively looking into it.
okay.
So when you say they're not eligible for it, is that because of the infrastructure under the road?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I kind of figured as much.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And the state is doing a lot with the resurfacing project, but they've had to hold it up because of the infrastructure project under the road.
Well, I know that they didn't do it for the ADA issues for
No.
many years, so those have been
Those have
taken
been
care of.
resolved.
So
Yeah.
now we just got to figure out
Yeah.
how to
Right.
fix the underlying problem, as they say.
One other area, and I want to bring this up because Janice Goodwin was an enormously important part of this MMPO, and she has fought really hard, and I promised when she passed away that I was going to fight for her, which is the sidewalk that goes from the bus down to, what would you call, what shopping area that it is where?
It was supposed to go all the way down to Dutch Run. wasn't it?
Yeah, and we have been on this committee, and I know we've talked about it. Is that a possibility to look at?
Yes.
Okay. that's-
When you say the bus, you mean the
The
mountain
bus,
line?
the mountain line, yeah.
So it'd go down
From
towards,
DuPont to Dens.
If
over,
anyone who would
okay.
watch, you have people getting off who's
Yep.
using it with, baby carriages and others, and walking in the ditches and in the roads. And that really is something that I think meets what I would see the carbon. Okay, and as long as we would look at that, would be something we could consider.
And what we would want to do is ask Westover
Yeah.
to put in an application, and then
Okay.
we would go through the process that we've outlined here.
Okay, that would be
And
good.
so that is clearly one that would
Okay.
meet probably both of the funding
Perfect, okay.
categories that we're talking about.
Yeah, at the end of the day, and again, with all these decisions, and the state makes them every day all around the state versus a local issue.
Yeah.
You do fully understand that you might wind up with a dozen different applications,
Yeah,
and you may only have to can choose one.
right.
right. Oh, yeah.
If we only
And-
get a dozen, I'll be surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's like everything else, just around the state, everybody's, people in Gilmer County competing against those in Clay and Greenbrier and everywhere else. It's gonna wind up becoming that local issue, and, when you put together an application, just like these grants that everybody's going for nationally, you gotta be able to sell the product, which ones, you're gonna go for, because at the end of the day, if this board decides to put the money on this project,
Yes.
everybody better be prepared for somebody not liking that decision.
Yeah, and that's fine.
And
But at least it gets, yeah.
Yeah. And I included this in the executive director's
Okay.
report instead of on item 8, because I had new information that I couldn't put in the agenda package.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
I
Well,
apologize
appreciate
for skipping, but, so we've exhausted item 8.
it. Yes,
Yes,
that's
I-
fine. That's what I thought we'd do it all at the same time.
That's fine.
I had one minor thing for the policy board that I wanted to bring up. A while back, I think long before several of the members ever got on the board, we brought up the possibility of the MPO joining the Chamber of Commerce. And at that time, the policy board was not in favor of that. Since the Morgantown Area Partnership has been founded, I was asked the policy board if you think it's appropriate for the MPO to join the Morgantown Area Partnership.
What are the benefits?
Increased coordination on issues through the partnership. And
Who covers the cost?
the MPO would cover the cost.
What are we talking about in terms of cost?
I'm just exploring it at this point, but it would be a nominal fee.
What services do you expect to be rendered?
We work directly with the partnership on several items.
Well, certainly,
Yeah.
you do on, with our development people too, so.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
I'm
just
not
ex-
opposed, I
yeah.
just, I'm.
Just explore and get some
I'll
information.
get some,
and
I'll
cost
get
and
some
bring it back.
information and bring it back.
Okay.
And maybe I'll just share an email on it.
Okay, that would be good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, for the record, the Board of Education is a member.
Right.
But we pay individually. There's no cost to the county. Each member pays their share, so that's why I was asking.
Okay.
Number
Well,
one is
I
make
mean,
sure
I
that.
personally could do it, but I was going to do it as a.
Well, I was going to say, just make sure that we're appropriate on
Right.
that part of it.
Right. And normal civic organizations like that are fine, as long as we're not lobbying. That's the biggest thing, and we would not be.
We're always lobbying the state to fix these.
And I
roads.
think one of the keys that, when you're putting the email out,
Yeah.
talk about the involvement of I know Bill and I are on those transportation calls monthly, and then
Yes.
the infrastructure
Right.
week, and some of those things that are critical to us, so people get an understanding of the work you're already doing with it.
Yeah, we're already working with the Infrastructure Week and the committees on that. And actually, that phone call and that work with that committee is actually recognized in the bylaws. We have a policy advisory committee within the bylaws, and we've been using that group to meet the requirements of the bylaws for a policy advisory committee.
So, okay, so
That-
is that your report?
That is my report.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And one of the things I wanted, again, I think Christian mentioned it, but congratulations on your appointment and election to the board. And I think that speaks very well for not only you, but, us as far as where we're positioned here. So congratulations.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm very honored to have been selected for the board. I view, and one of the reasons I ran is with things like the infrastructure bill, the project that we were just talking about with the funding, I view this as a critical time for MPOs, especially small MPOs. And I think the association should step forward and provide the support that small MPOs like ours need to address the issues, for example, that Brian brought up about having a process to select projects and doing that and getting the National Association to provide all MPOs with this kind of support that we need to be successful. And so that was my key interest in running for the board. So thank you very much for the recommendation.
One of the things I want to do too, under the executive director's report, and I know all of us operate obviously individually with our own concerns in our cities and county and the BOE, but there has been some changes at the DOT level. And so, when we're used to working with Mike Cronin's no longer the district engineer, he's been bumped up. So could you, and then, I don't know if we're allowed to say, I have worked through my career for a long time, and I know Kim Hawes and I were just in a conversation on a project that Dave Kramer has been
Right.
part of so many of our projects, and Dave's no longer there, but we know who's replacing Dave. I don't know if you could fill folks in on some of those folks.
It's the dominoes.
Yeah, and really, Brian, and we were literally discussing this in the parking lot when we were coming in. We have not been formally informed of who the new district engineer is. I've attempted to give him a call, and he hadn't called me back. But it is noticed on the website, but we'll be more active in trying to set up a meeting to introduce ourselves. And to keep in mind, he's also the interim district engineer, so.
Well, who is the interim engineer?
I
Just,
don't remember, I'll be
you
honest.
remember who it is, Brian?
I'll be honest, no.
So if you could get those contacts.
Yeah,
'cause
we'll
that's
get
important.
those contacts.
So-
And.
They should be on the
yes.
website. I mean.
Yeah, it is on the
so,
website. I
okay.
just, and as I said, I did try and call him, but
I know Tom had just made mention that they had a very strong relationship with Mike Cronin.
Excellent.
And Mike was very responsive, so it's very important to get the counties and
Yeah.
everyone the new contacts, the cities, so they have those direct contacts.
yeah. And for Dave Kramer's place, Perry Keller is taking Dave Kramer's place. Perry worked in Brian's position when I first got here.
Yep.
And so he is a friend of Montague County, I think. And
Yes, he is.
So he will be taking Dave Kramer's place. I heard the name for the replacement for Cindy Kramer, who also retired.
Ted Whitmore, I think.
Craig Whitmore, yes.
Ted.
Ted.
Ted, T-E-D.
Ted. I don't know Ted, so. But we also want to get to know Ted. Donna Hardy, who did do a presentation and is working with us on our safety initiative, works with Ted.
Yep.
So we're keeping our contact with her.
And I know Perry was involved with our MPO from when it was initially formed, way back with Mr. Bailey.
Yeah.
For years ago, so we haven't had just really Perry and Brian that I can recall, and Mr. Bailey, but,
Yeah.
so Perry knows Mon County very well, is my point, as well.
Yeah, he was here from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a number of us all trying to learn new positions right now.
Well, if you don't mind,
Truth
Bill,
be
you
told,
get that, send that out to
Yeah.
everyone, because that's, with winter coming up and people need to make contact to the
Yeah.
snow plowing and those kind of things, it's always good to have the right
Yeah,
contacts.
October 31st is a popular date for retirement for the state of West Virginia.
So, okay.
Yeah, we will follow up. I probably had not been quite as diligent because of the interim title.
Okay.
But
All right.
we'll definitely make sure.
Well, let's try to move right along. We've got, item 5 is our TIP amendment that we have on the agenda this evening that will need action.
And, Mr. Chairman, that is for the RAISE grant that we've already discussed. That is the design study for the remainder of Greenbag Road, as well as the feasibility study for the parallel trail, which this is the result of the Greenbag Road study that MPO staff did in 2015.
Correct. So you all should have that in your packet. Is there a motion to accept that TIP amendment?
I move to accept.
Second? Any additional discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the TIP amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion will stand as presented to us. The next is the highway safety performance measures.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an annual item, and I need to find my memorandum on it. There we go. Thank you, I'm sorry. This is an item that goes through every year. The state reviews their performance as far as fatalities, serious accidents, serious injuries, bicycle and pedestrian fatalities, and serious injuries. We have a summary that was presented in the memorandum about the progress that has been made. And I hope the board has had a chance to read it. I could go through it, but I think we're
It's
okay
all
with
here.
it. It's all in there. But the policy board needs to adopt this to show that we understand the state's priorities. And I will also bring up Mr. Bildso's reference about having a accident reference and getting James, our staff, to work on it, would be to set our own performance measures, so we could be tracking our progress as well. And we would add those annually to this safety. But the vehicle fatalities, the goals that they're setting are 8.9 for 2022 and a reduction to 8.8 in 2023. Vehicle fatality rate of 1.116 for 2022 and 1.06 for 2023. Serious vehicle injuries, 34.9 for 2022 and 2023. There's a little statistical anomaly. The state basically prepares these performance measures using straight line projections, but some serious vehicle injuries of 3.975 for 2022 and 4.075 for 2023. Bicycle and pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries, 4.6 for 2022 and 4.3 for 2023. And we just really need a motion to accept those.
So moved to accept.
Is there a second?
Report.
Mr. Blinko on the second. Any additional discussions or questions for Bill? Hearing none, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Then we will move that forward as passing that here this evening. The draft calendar meeting, everyone has that, should have it in your packet.
Yeah.
If you don't, we can get you one. And it also, just a note, it does have the citizens advisory and the technical advisory schedules. Ben, you have a copy of that? I'll give you a copy of mine.
Oh,
So-
yeah, we got an extra one there anyway.
Yeah, give us a
So
whole
that way,
packet, yeah.
you have it. And that's just an information item. We've already taken care of item 8. Item 9, input on projects to be included in the fiscal year 2023-24 Unified Planning Work Program.
Yes, sir. The only real recommendation we got from the CAC and the TTAC was Mr. Abilso reviewed the Citizens Advisories Committee's recommendation that that MPO staff work on the development of crash rates locally. And certainly we can have staff do that.
Yeah.
The other item that was mentioned in the agenda packet that we talked about was the potential downtown study. When we adopted the Metropolitan Transportation Plan back in May, that was one of our highest priority projects. And as we discussed earlier, that includes looking at everything from Willie Street, the whole downtown area. And that is potentially a $500,000 project. That was the other item I discussed. At this point, we're simply looking for your input so I can develop a draft work program to present to the policy board in January. So this is really an item that's open for discussion. I will tell you, we are expecting a slight bump in our PL funds, something on the order of 10, 20%, something along that. Right now, our allocation is about $350,000, so we would be looking at more, a budget available more in the $400,000 range, which would impact the local match.
And what is that? Remind me the local match.
The local match is 10%.
10%,
The state provides 10% of the match.
Okay.
It's 80% federal funding, 10% state funding, and 10%
Local.
match, local match.
But the county and the city split the 10.
Yes.
I will add that, like I say, this downtown / Willie Street study, I mean, it can be incorporated into the UPWP. How it's going to get funded is yet to be determined. It could be multiple sources. It could be utilizing, PL funds that you normally get, on a routine basis, just like all MPOs. They do long-range plans. They hire consultants. They have to get an extra $200,000-300,000 to accomplish those tasks. I mean, those are required tasks. So the funding still has to get worked out on that. I mean, there could be multiple sources. You could use the carbon reduction. You can use the, STBG. So there's some other options in there. We just got to put the pieces together. But, as I always caution everybody, just because you put it in your UPWP, at the end of the day, it might not get funded, particularly with PL funds. It might have to be something else. So we're still, one of the issues that honestly that's kind of holding up some of these things, we keep waiting for the new census to come out. Here we are in 2020, into 2022, and we still haven't got official census. And that is one of the things that really, when we're trying to break down every MPO's share based on, population and stuff, can't make that calculation without that information. So that's really kind of one of the holdups we're having right now.
So
We don't need any action.
we don't need any action, and obviously, if the policy board members haven't thought of items, feel free to contact me. I will be developing the budget and have a draft UPWP for the January meeting.
Okay. And then nominating committee, Patty, I can't remember, were you on our nominating committee last year? I know it was Mike, myself.
She's shaking her head pretty
And Joe,
quickly.
I'm trying to recruit you on our nominating committee.
I'll do it.
But, and if anyone else wants to be part of that, I've talked to Joe, but let us know or let Mike know. Our intention is to get together next month and then have something ready. What do we have to have it by the January policy meeting?
We
Present it?
theoretically, under the bylaws, we are supposed to have the nominating committee report
On the
go with
December
the
one?
agenda.
On the December meeting?
No, we don't have a December. It would be for the agenda for the January.
That's what I'm saying, so we've got, so as
Yeah.
long as we get together in December and have that prepared for you for
Yeah.
January, we're fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so if anyone else wants to be part of that, please let us know.
Since Dave didn't show up.
That'll be
we can put
another
him on it,
meeting.
too.
Huh?
Since Dave didn't show up, we can put him on it.
Yeah, yeah, Dave Ruffy's down on it.
Let Dave
And
know
Jeff.
that. Anyone have any other business? I have two minor items. One is, and we appreciate the county and the city, and I know WVU, and you all heard about this about 3 or 4 years ago when we started looking at the pedestrian safety, and certainly Bill's in all those meetings. But now we've been able, through the good work of the city, we've installed 3 different sets, with the law school area being completed, of the rapid flashing beacon series. And you know, one of the things when we went into it, we weren't real sure. We could put them there, but will they use them? And the answer to that is yes, they are. I mean, they are, and there's some data showing that. So unfortunately, we have to replace one there in the loop, and we're waiting on it because there was an accident of some kind there that took out the one on the one side of the street through that parking lot. So I know Damien's on top of it and Drew there, but again, there's been those are 3
Was that
successful
biker?
areas. And then
Biker.
Bill, one of the big things was Pattison Drive.
Yes.
And we have been notified that that project is moving forward as a pedestrian safety island area. We're looking at probably early spring.
Yes.
Is when they're gonna be doing that.
The state released the bids on that.
Great.
So-
Yeah.
So.
That's exciting news.
Yeah, it was last
That
month.
So there's
has been
been some
the- yeah.
successful things come out of
Yes.
that is the point. And then the second thing that, you know, I think is really important, and all of our projects are important that we have, or they wouldn't be on our list somewhere, but, you know, I think it's really important that, especially in the world that we're living in today, we don't know where money's coming from, but in certain areas, there's money dropping from places we never knew money could drop from. I mean, I was in 2 meetings today, and they're talking about the 3rd round of earmark funding. And quite frankly, we were pretty good on the 2nd round of earmark funding that we haven't gotten the 1st round for. But, so point there is, our tier 1s are very important, and we need to keep those on the radar screen at all times. And I know, and Sean's on and the Development Authority, and it's going to be coming to the city, but that Richwood project, the goal is to have that to the city sometime probably in late January, early February, in the planned unit development process. And certainly the tier 1 road that's coming into there is going to be really important as to where, in fact, there's 2 tier 1 projects around Willie Street there as to that. So Holland Avenue is another one, the Industrial Park Road. But again, just to make mention of that if you all do hear through your own locales of funding or potential funding, and again, I know earmarks are an important part of that, and process for round 3 is now starting on those. But let's just keep all those at the forefront, and anywhere and everywhere we can look for funding and make note of that, because we still don't know what the infrastructure bill looks like, right, Brian? But supposedly it's there and there's money somewhere, so.
There seems to be a lot of money coming out. We're
Yeah.
just not sure how to wrap our arms around it.
Exactly, so.
And I would volunteer that MPO staff is happy to assist any of our member jurisdictions or agencies with the preparation of grants, providing information, providing staff support. We're more than willing and able to help with that.
Yeah, and even on this grant that Willie Street's in on, that's a good example, something that wasn't there 5 years ago,
Right.
but now is here, so.
That's correct. Yes, we did, the MPO did file a Safe Streets for All grant application for Willie Street, and also for a project that would make South High Street up through Dorsey Avenue all the way to Greenbag Road, more bicycle and pedestrian friendly. And that was a project we partnered with city staff on. We partnered with the, I guess it was the Mon County Development Authority
On the,
on the Willie Street portion of that project.
those, you'll hear something early
We're
first quarter next year.
Yeah, we're hopeful. We have not heard a final date on when we will hear about that application. But that is an educated guess that we hope to hear the first quarter of next year, or maybe next month. It depends on how quickly they're able to review the applications.
Okay. Anyone have any other things?
I just had a question. Have we heard anything about like those sidewalk crossings that we had
Well,
talked
yeah,
about?
We had submitted that to the
Mhm.
state and asked for their support for all of those projects. And only those 2 projects that I just mentioned were they able
So
to
that was
support.
it.
And I thought we had discussed that, but
Yeah.
um,
Okay.
That was how that worked. We can still work with these other funding sources and those sorts of things on these projects.
Well, I wanted to thank you all too, especially Commissioner Bloom and Mr. Carr. We've had a couple meetings with the MUB, and Sean came out and talked in Star City. My big concern, and I just sent some pictures to Tom and showed Mayor Lewis and sent them to Sean. If you paid attention to that sinkhole down in Hinton, we have a ticking time bomb in the Star City, Texas Roadhouse parking lot. And it's $4 to $6 million to fix it. So I hope we're paying attention, because that is scary to me. It's the main artery to get in and out of our whole community, and affects all of us. So that kind of, when I saw that the other day in Hinton, my antenna went up. So just to keep an eye on it, and mentioning it here, maybe more people hear a little bit about it and get a little more concerned and pay attention.
There may be a grant program
Wonderful.
that can address it. I'll look into it. I was aware that there was a problem there. I wasn't aware it was.
Oh, it's getting close to University Ave.
It's within 2 car lengths.
Yeah.
I went down and measured it with my car, and I took my discus and shot put measuring tape, since I'm a track coach. And I measured it out. So, I mean, it's close. It's getting there. I mean, I just get nervous because I saw how that one started smaller, and if you look at the one in Hinton, it looks smaller than the one in the Texas Roadhouse parking lot, and now it's humongous.
I will look into that
Yeah.
first thing in the morning and let you know.
I'm just concerned for all of us.
Yeah.
Is there any mapping for what's under there as far as drainage, any of that? Is there like
There
drain
was-
that's leaking and sucking?
I think we were going to be looking at it, but we haven't heard back. We'll just have to follow up with it. Emily was at the meeting, Mazzarelli, she came, and City of Morgantown, so everybody was looking at it. So maybe just keep following up with it, because
Was there DOH representation
Remember
there?
years ago when that was a
No.
gully?
That's what I was gonna say. I was actually gonna add you to my comment that there's a lot of fill through there, and even at the end of the, where the drugstore is, that parking lot area there, there's a lot of fill there.
Yeah.
Rumor has it there's a bulldozer buried under all that. But anyway, my point being is,
I was gonna ask you,
About the
how old
bulldozer?
you were, no, how old you were, you remember when that was a gully?
Steve,
well,
Yeah.
a lot of times that if they filled that in and they had wood, if they buried wood, and then the wood rots, and then
Right.
you have a sink, so.
I know when we talked, the first thing we were trying to do was ascertain the right-of-way that particular sinkhole was on. I've never heard back. I don't know if you've talked to DOH reps or if that's been determined as to
No.
whose right-of-way that's actually on, because that still kind of falls back to, problem number one is identifying,
Who owns
the
it?
property that it's on.
Right.
yes.
And once that happens, then you can start working, whether it's a private entity, the state, the county, whoever it may be, somebody's gonna have to step up. Maybe, it's gonna be a shared responsibility, like you said.
Yeah.
The critical artery coming into Morgantown with that, so.
Well, I thought it was great everybody got together, and the reason why is because of this group and this organization. I get to talk to everybody and see everybody, and that's one of the positives of being on this board. So I appreciate that, and hopefully it helps us solve big problems that affect all of us.
I will certainly look into that, because I was glancing through the available grants, and it appears that one of the sustainability grants might be able to assist in that issue. But I'll have to go back and look at it.
Okay. And I mean, we even got into Pompano Run and all kind of other issues too. And I mean, everything could be connected. We don't know. There could be a lot of things. So it could be very complex.
We'll get on that in the morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Gene, thank you very much you don't have anything, do you? Thanks very much, and trust me, now we know our way in, and we appreciate you standing out and showing us the way in. But next time you won't have to do that, so thank you.
Well, we need to get better
Is
signs.
there a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to say thank you all for letting me be
So-
here today. I really appreciate it. I know Dave has some big shoes to fill.
So, well, thank you, we appreciate you being
And
here.
the hardest
being part
part
of it.
is trying to figure out when they throw out all these code letters. We almost need a
We
cheat
still
sheet.
don't- we still don't know what
We
they
just
all
need
are.
what all these
Yeah.
cheat
That's
sheets.
what my notes are. I'm going
Yeah.
to go
Yes,
Google when I get home.
we don't know either, so it's,
Lot of alphabet.
I
yes.
have a question.
Yeah.
Can we expect our meetings to be here for a period of time?
If you're asking me, I've already asked the question. We're more than welcome here
That's
Yeah.
great.
anytime, so.
If it's the
If it-
pleasure of the board, then we will
Yep, good night, sir.
continue to meet.
It is.
Parking was very easy.
Close for Ben, close for
Getting
Ben
to
Don't
On
Collins.
the
have to
other
pay for
hand-
policemen.
Yes.
Traffic's
We haven't
We
put
don't
the
have to
parking
pay for
meters in yet.
policemen.
Yeah.
Do you think we can get those traffic lights synchronized?
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Always blaming me.
We are adjourned, thank you.
It's a little bit.
Yeah, see, that's what happened.